Welcome back to Creating Genius. And today is interesting. I had this whole write up that I was doing about this particular podcast idea that I thought I liked, and I was going through it. And as I was writing out, I wrote like 2 pages on it, and I was like, I really don't like this at all. I don't like how it's coming to me. I don't like the words that I'm using. I don't like the form that it's taking as I'm trying to give this thing life. And so instead, I'm on here and I'm just going to talk about it. um, because I think there's something about the creative process that's so beautiful and fun and very much like I was talking about on my last show with Avery. There's a lot of surrender that goes into it. And so I'm going to surrender to whatever my mind has in store for me for whatever I say, because who knows? So the idea that I was talking about or thinking about, right, thinking about doing for this show was thinking about why I thought a while ago that I couldn't meditate. I wasn't good at it, or I thought I wasn't good at it. I would sit down and my mind would just go nuts. Thoughts would just like bombard me. And I would get antsy, I would get anxious, my body got really uncomfortable. And for a long time, I was basically like, okay, I guess this just isn't for me. And because of that belief, I didn't do it. Because I was like, well, I'm not good at it. What's the point? It wasn't until probably about a year or so into being sick where I just started to sit down and just like sit. Like no music, no nothing, nothing guided. I just sat down and for as long as I could until I got way too antsy or anxious, and then I stopped. And I remember the first time I did it, it was probably like 30 seconds. And I sat down and I was like, okay, whatever. Let's see what happens. 30 seconds goes by. My like knee's itching and I itch my knee. Okay, first meditation done. And I just kind of like started doing that every day. And it was weird. It was uncomfortable. It was not a lot of fun. I I don't know if I would recommend that being the way someone gets into meditating. Probably like Headspace or whatever, some sort of app maybe. Or you could just throw yourself in the fire and do one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's 45-minute long ones. Um, I think there is something very valuable about just kind of like going balls to the wall the first time you do something and throwing yourself totally in the fire and just being like, okay, I'm either going to swim or I'm going to drown. Probably going to drown, but at least I'm not actually drowning. And I think there's something valuable about that. I I know, especially when starting something new, learning a new skill, for me, getting that inertia going or getting over the inertia of not doing whatever I feel like I need to be doing is really, really hard. And that's actually what I'm doing right now is I'm just getting on here and fucking talking about nothing and kind of seeing where this goes and just allowing myself to create. I've been doing a lot of journaling lately and just free writing, and there's some interesting stuff that comes out of it, just kind of allowing it to happen. And I think the valuable lesson for me in sitting down right now and doing this is really about not getting married to having an idea, having a vision for how it's going to come out, and then basically like forcing that idea into that box of the vision. Because that's what I was trying to do when I was writing this thing out. I had sat down like a few days ago to start to write it, and I wrote out a little bit, and I sat down again today to keep fleshing it out. And I was reading it, and I was like, "This isn't good. I don't love this." But I just like I kept trying to force it to happen. And as I continued to try to force it, it not the worse and worse isn't the right way to put it, but I definitely liked it less, and got to a point where I was like, wow, this feels really inauthentic. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, I'm scrapping this. It's time to move on to something else. Or just talk about it and see what happens, which is what I'm doing right now. Because that was the thought of the inauthenticity. I was like, you know, this kind of feeling of like, I don't love it. I don't love it. Like, I can make this work. And then being like, no, this is not the way I want to express this. And the word, like, inauthenticity coming to mind was a signal where I was like, wow, okay, I've become too attached to the way I think this idea should be coming out. I need to detach from it. And it feels better for sure. Even just realizing that in the moment was really cool, because I did it before actually, like 3 weeks ago, maybe. Yeah, like almost exactly 3 weeks ago, I sat down and I outlined an episode, and I was like, this is a really cool idea. This is going really well. And I wrote out like 5 pages of it, and I went back and read through it, and I was like, wow, this is not what I want to be portraying at all. I think catching myself a little earlier this time was really cool. You know, just trying to grow, learn and grow out here, do things a little bit better each time, because that's where the progress happens. That's where the magic happens. You know, I know I get presented with the same challenge over and over and over again with a different face or packaged in a different way. And my job is to try my best to take the mask off the problem and see it for what it really is in the way that I can best. Because otherwise, I'm going to see it as a completely different problem, take a completely different approach, when in fact it's trying to teach me a lesson of something else. Like, I think this example of the first time doing it, getting so deep into it that it was basically until I went to sit down and record and being like, I don't like this episode, I'm not going to do it. And then this time, at least starting to write it out, being in the middle, catching myself and be like, no, I don't like this. It's on to the next one. We're going to try something different. I think, and realizing that it's not a reflection on me as a creator, or me as a podcaster, or me as a writer, or me as whatever the fuck I'm trying to identify myself as in the 3D world. It's not a reflection on any of that. It's just, I tried something, it didn't feel authentic, and I let it go. And now I'm talking about how it didn't feel authentic. So that was pretty cool.